Hey guys, this is Tina B.
And Charmaine G.
We're here to talk about the messiness of life. It's ugly.
And it's raw.
It's real.
And it's a freaking game.
It's whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole!
Whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole!
Whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole!
This is us.
And our gift to you.
Hello and welcome.
Hey, Tina B.
Hi, Charmaine G.
Yeah!
What's happening?
Oh, welcome, wackos. It's
Welcome,
another
welcome.
episode.
Episode 4, putting it in the can tonight.
And I'll tell you what, this last week was an adventure, starting out with unannounced impromptu topics.
Yeah,
My turn.
it is Charmaine's turn, and I'm just,
I'm telling you what, I think everybody's going to relate to this, but before we get started, I'd like to turn the time over for the World Whack-A-Mole.
Okay, this one is close to my heart. Did you know that suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the U.S.?
You know what? I actually did. That's intense.
It's frightening. It's scary.
Did you know there's more suicide than there is accidental injuries?
I did not know that.
That is.
I did not know that.
Yep.
And if I would have been on the ball, I would have talked about the first 9 things because it's 10th, but I didn't do that. So here we are. On average, there are about 132 suicides per day in the United States.
Breaks my heart.
132 people a day.
That breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Did you know?
That's people who are suffering without help. There is help. September is Suicide Prevention Month. September 10th, which was last Thursday, was World Suicide Day. We had a walk here over the weekend too on the 12th, which was Saturday. They did an annual walk for suicide. I've done that before too, and you walk for somebody that is
you're
close
in
to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're in remembrance of.
Yes. The AFSP, which stands for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, has a hotline. That number is 1-800-273-8255. So if you're suffering, if you're struggling, there's so much help out there. This is just the AFSP, but there are also apps you can download. Utah has an app that you can download.
Yeah, you can dial 988. Actually, instead of 911, 988 will get you into a mental health crisis worker.
I didn't know that. Thank you, Charmaine.
It
I
just
did not know
came
that.
out last week.
Wow,
Yeah.
very cool. Okay. And their website for the AFSP is suicidepreventionlifeline.org. And if you don't want to talk, they have a chat too. When you get on the website, you can start a chat with somebody.
Some people feel more comfortable.
I
just
would
because
imagine.
they're able to not have the live feedback and take their time to think things through. So
Totally.
Thank
So
you
there's
for
help
that.
out there available. So that's our world mole for today. Close
Love
to
it.
my heart.
very close.
Okay.
All right, wackos. My favorite Tina B. The topic of the day is resilience.
Shit.
Okay, so here's the thing. Like, when it came to me, it just stuck. It wouldn't go away. And it was telling to me that this is for everyone today. Because I feel like resilience is something that we've literally had practice from birth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hard times, times that we didn't understand, confusing, just to survive and get by. It's like Darwin's theory, right? You got to bounce back from that for the survival. I'm going to start off by sharing an interesting story.
Oh, I'm
I've got
ready.
a range because, you know, when we go into resilience, I immediately went to the most embarrassing moment in my life.
Let's hear it.
Okay.
Lay it on me.
And you know what? It was an epiphany because I've always laughed about it. I've always thought it was the funniest thing. And I'm in counseling.
Oh, are tampons involved?
No, but they will be. I'll throw them in there.
Okay.
Like
you don't have to. I'm just wondering if
Actually, I'm about to blow.
is
your
blood
freaking
involved.
world.
Okay.
No blood.
Okay. Go.
But bodily fluids are.
All right.
Okay.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's happening.
It's all right. Go.
So I was in counseling like 5 years ago, and
you shit the couch.
no, it didn't happen then.
I'm
It
just
gets better. So he says, so tell me a time that you could say that you were resilient. And I'm like, I don't know. Give me some leeway on this. And he goes, well, what's your most embarrassing moment? I'm like, Okay, I got one for you. Are you ready for this, therapist? Okay, so I was in the 8th grade, and kids are cruel. I'm just going to start off that way. Kids are cruel, no matter.
Oh, you don't have to tell me.
Like, just insanely cruel.
Yeah.
So I'm in the 8th grade, and I had a game that day. I was a cheerleader at the time, and I had a game that day, and I woke up like feeling like crap and nauseous and all kinds of things. And you have to wear your uniform to school when you're going to cheer right after.
We could not be more opposite. Go. Sorry.
I tell you, threw me off. So I'm sitting there, and my mom gives me oatmeal to eat that day, and I loved her oatmeal. I love your oatmeal, Mom. To this day, it's my favorite, with a nice piece of buttered toast. But that day, I had to force it down, and she's like, "You don't look good." Like, I used to be able to fake sick and get out of school, but this time she was actually asking me to stay home. I'm like, "No, Mom, I gotta go, Mom. They need me there after the game." So I decided to get on the bus, and I ride all the way to school. And by this time, I'm just green. I'm sick as a dog. I'm in first class, Mr. Rudelsel's class, science. And I sat at the very top corner. I think it's because he liked me, or either I was a class clown. I'm just going to say the first, just because it makes me feel better. But
That's another podcast episode. Go ahead. Hot for teacher. Or the other way. Or don't stand so close to me. Go. Sorry.
So it was alphabetical, and by the time they got through the attendance, I'm like raising my hand going, I gotta go. I gotta go to the bathroom. He's like, wait until I do roll call.
Charmaine, no, baby girl.
So my uniform was black and gold. I was a Pioneer Panther. And he gets to the R's, because my name, and he says, I said, that's it. And I just get out of my seat, and I pretty much made it to the door, 2 feet from the door, and I kind of leaned on the frames of the door and projectiled vomit. And I vomited so hard everywhere. You could hear everyone in the classroom just, excruciating.
And just the splatter and the chunks and the, so nasty.
I had thrown up so hard that I shit my pants.
Oh, darling.
Yeah, horrible. In my cheerleading
So you had
uniform.
it kind of coming
So I
out.
had it coming down
You had
my
it
leg.
coming and going.
And on my white, beautiful leather Converse.
Oh, darling.
And I just looked back, wiped my face off, and went running down the hall. And I went straight to the nurse's office. And as soon as I came in the door, the secretary was like, oh, hey, no, don't come in here. And I'm like, I'm sick. I need to come on. And she's like, oh my gosh, I can smell it. Just, can you stay right there? And I'm like, where do you want me to stay? She's like, just go sit down in the hallway. So I sat down in the hallway.
In your shitted pants.
And yeah, just shit, stinky everywhere. And I'm sitting in the hallway, just like in a cradle position, clenching my knees. And the nurse opens the door and throws me these lavender sweatpants that were for a 5th grader, because that's all they had in the lost and found, and said, here, honey, put these on. We've called your mom. She's on her way. I lived in the country, so it took her 10 minutes to get into town. And I'm just praying that bell don't ring. Oh, it rang. It rang. And everybody had heard within 5 minutes during that break. Did you hear? Did you hear about Charmaine?
Oh, today. Could you imagine today?
Oh, my
There would have been a video, pictures. There would have been a banner.
And so I'm telling the therapist this story, and I'm dying laughing. My Kyle sitting next to me, and he's just sitting there going, dying laughing too. And the therapist's face is just mouth dropped open and shaking his head. I'm like, it was the funniest thing. And I remember my boyfriend coming to the hallway because he had heard, and he comes in and he breaks up with me.
Of course.
He broke up with me. And then my mom picks me up, and she doesn't let me get in the car until she lays a trash bag on the seat and all these wonderful things. And I go home and I puke and poop my guts out all day long. And you know what? I got up and I went to school the next day.
I would have run out of those. I would have busted out like they were letting me out of prison and ran home.
Didn't even think
like
twice
Forrest
about it.
Gump. I would have been just done. What next school? What's the next closest school?
I could probably tell you that anybody I would always remember that. Do you remember when you shit your pants in your cheerleading uniform?
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So I
I'm
bounced
sorry.
back from that. Like, I stood up to that and said, it happens. Shit happens.
Well, I have to say that I'm very impressed that you bounced back from that and that you went to school.
I did.
Back to school the next day.
I did.
Eighth grade Tina, eighth grade Tina would have been swearing at people, trying to find somebody to blame.
Oh yeah, that's
would-
probably
yeah, oh,
why.
yeah, I would.
My life probably is that's where it went. Pivot the T in the road, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna just wither away and just become addicted.
There's a great idea.
So, what's your resilience story? Let's
Oh
share
my
some
gosh.
of yours.
You know what? I have a bunch of them. I think the one that there's some that stand out more that I want to talk about in the future, in future episodes. I would have to say, well, and I didn't even plan this, but we talked about suicide prevention. My mom died.
Yeah.
Died by suicide when I was 16 years old. And so I experienced the death of a parent. And that was harrowing. It was surreal at first, really, because I just never imagined that she would not, that she would leave so soon. So
Did you know or see anything coming, or was it?
I mean, you know, in retrospect, of course, at the time, not really,
Right.
but that's not I mean, we'll get into that. I'll
Sure.
dissect that on another episode. I
Love
have
it.
no problem doing that. However, this was a time for me where I then was plucked out of, from away from my friends, out of my little clique of people, just plucked right out.
And that's
Then
such a
and then there's
critical
such a
age.
stigma attached to that, all of that stuff.
Oh my gosh.
I went up to Washington to live with an aunt, and I spent my senior year there, and I loved it so much that I took a plane at 6 a.m. after staying up all night, graduation night. I mean, I couldn't wait to get the hell out of there. I wanted to be back with my friends, and I wanted to see, you know, my sister again and my brother and whatnot. Anyway, so bouncing back from that that was a big deal. Bouncing back from that was, and just trying to plant my feet firmly in the ground. There are lots of things that happened. I guess if I'm being honest, you got up and went back to school the next day. It didn't happen that fast for me.
Right.
You know, coming out
Yeah.
of that. When I think about resiliency, I think about also when I was a single parent, being left holding the bag. I'm leaving now, and I'm taking more than half of, 2/3 of the income, and
I'm not going to support you.
and bye.
Yeah.
And that's where I've gained most of my strength. I think resiliency is beautiful. And I also, when I was listening to you talk, I was, you think about your own kids. I mean, if that was Myra, come on, you would be like,
I don't think yeah. I
clean
don't,
that up as fast as you, I mean, no
would
pun intended,
scoop
but
her
yeah.
and her poop up.
Yeah,
I would
and then
just
let's go
cradle.
look at other schools.
Yeah.
Like,
And that's why my
I mean-
therapist was mortified, because he was like, "How do you feel about that?" And I'm like, "I feel fine."
Oh.
And he's like, "If you could go back and talk to that little girl in the hallway, cradled in that position, what would you say to her?" And it shocked the heck out of me, because I thought, well, I didn't go that direction with it. And he said, would you cry for her? Would you feel mortified? Would you feel like she's going to not outlive this? And I said, well, yeah. And he goes,
wouldn't you feel like you would want to save her?
if I could,
Yeah.
if I could. And all these years I've been laughing about it, just because that was, like, honestly my mechanism.
Don't change that. I think that's awesome.
No, I do too. But when he said that, I realized that I never recognized that I had a lack of empathy for myself.
Mm.
And so I got to experience a whole nother way of resilience all
There's a
these
little
years later.
nugget right there, huh?
Yeah, it really, honestly, it propelled me into really identifying how to nurture myself, in a sense.
Would you say that you bounce back from embarrassment or humiliation? I don't want to say humiliation. That's
no,
such
it
a
was
harsh word.
Dang humiliation.
It was humiliating, I'm sure. Would you say that you bounce back from that pretty?
I
pretty
had
well?
to. I mean, almost like I could tell you that I had to go into a whole nother dimension in my mindset just to and laugh it off
In
and
the
let
8th
people
grade?
yeah, the most crucial time in a teenager's life to live that down and to laugh it off and let people make nicknames up for you for generations. I'll tell you, my name's Charmaine.
Okay, we all know where this is
Right,
going.
right. Sure, Charmin, great. Your kids are cool. But here's the thing. Like, it never penetrated me. It never at all sunk in of, okay, stay down. Stay down. Like, dwell on this. It's the end of all end. It was natural that it was like, bounce.
Mm.
And I'll tell you, later on in life, I'm going to give you the range that I mentioned. When I think of resiliency, you know, I always say I'm in my second life now.
Mm.
You know, my first was self-conflicted for a lot of things.
What does that mean?
Self-conflicted is mean I made choices that had consequences and that I chose to live that way.
Okay.
Self-conflicted wounds.
Okay.
So one of the points in my life that was another game changer, I was 28. So I lived in Indiana.
Is this another embarrassing one? Okay.
It's the other end of the spectrum.
Okay. Oh, sorry. You mentioned that.
You're good.
Forgive me.
I look at them as the most growing periods of my life. Because resilient is today. This morning I was resilient with having to be diplomatic in a conflict with another personnel.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm just like, okay, I got to chalk this up and bounce back. This isn't something that we dwell on. 28 years old, Indianapolis, and I was wearing thin of that first lifestyle that I was choosing to live in. And it's like watching the movie. You know, every time I talk or I think about it, it's like watching the movie and you want to tell the girl, run, you idiot. Like, why are you letting
Don't
this
go
happen?
in the basement.
Yeah.
The guy's yeah.
You're
He's
like,
down
what's
there.
that
Yeah.
noise? I'm going to go check that out
Totally.
without a weapon in my panties and whatever. Sorry, Sean. I knew I could get your ears perked up on that one. So my thing, I'm sitting there like trying to really grow as a person, and I decided to go back to church, like out of the blue, to go back to church. And I'm sitting in, and just because my soul was tired, like I was so tired, I was searching on my own. Never been here in this place in my life before. And my first husband, our lifestyle was very, flashy and fun. We were corporate raiders and no kids, no responsibility. We, definitely made good money and things like that. We worked hard for it, but we were functioning. Let's just put it that way. We were functioning. And he didn't want to stop. And he gave me a ultimatum and was like, if you go to church again, that makes me like, I don't want that. I want somebody to sit on with me for the rest of life and do this. And without, any action after that, he left. And I had these random women call my phone throughout the whole down the Mississippi River line. Just random women call my phone, and on purpose. And I felt sorrow for them. It was like I was trying to help them overcome the one night stand that he gave them the night before while choking down all of that pain. And it's almost like the lights came on, like.
So that's spiritual.
It was very spiritual.
I mean, when I get that, I can relate to that. Spiritual awakenings can catapult you into complete other dimensions of your life. You can jump into a place you may have only dreamed of by doing that. But that's the only way, out is to walk through that stuff. And so it sounds to me like you probably hit a wall with what was going on in your life,
Right.
and that wasn't
That wasn't what I
edifying.
seen
It wasn't
life was.
fulfilling to
Right.
you. There was no spiritual aspect to that.
No, and that's a part of me that I never tapped into.
Right.
It was almost like irrelevant, but I started having that urge, and it caused conflict, and the choice was made without me. And, through that time, I was lost. I mean, everything I understood in corporate work, living, friends, marriage, it was literally over in one day. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? What do I, and thank goodness that my parents knew, no matter what I was doing in life, they knew me. And they took me in and said, okay, dust your knees off. Let's go find where your way in life. Let's go figure it out together. And I was blessed to have somebody to confide in about my worries and my concerns. And it was a safe person for me. And to be honest with you, it's really those events, those big, huge events that help carve you out.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, we grew up, you and I come from completely different worlds. Somebody opened the cage after my mom died, and I just flew out but not like gracefully like a bird with the beautiful wingspan and really gliding and finding my way with my wings. I flew out like a bat, like a blind bat, like just bumping into shit, and it was awful. So I didn't move into spirituality gracefully. I didn't, even though I went to these dark places in my addictions, in my early 20s before I had kids and all that, I went to some very dark places, and there were times I was really done, and then I'd shake that off in a couple of days. I'm like, oh, you're not done. Come on, let's just, or somebody come around and go, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But I went to Catholic school and didn't even find God there. I didn't find God until I stopped drinking and using drugs, until I went to a 12-step. Yeah.
It's almost like...
But that set the tone, like you're talking about. That changed it for me forever.
Yeah.
Forever, it changed it for me, because now I know what it's like to live at a higher frequency.
I like that.
At a higher level of frequency.
I like that.
And I've dropped back down.
Sure.
To low levels.
I mean, that's the ebb and flow of life. I mean, you're going to be on that roller coaster. It's, I have to say, before we lead into our life whack-a-moles, I'm grateful for who I am. I'm grateful that I've had those trials that I can bounce back from, because resilience, like you had mentioned, makes you stronger than ever. And when you look back on anything, those reflections, or you say, hell yeah, I can do hard things. I can do hard things, and I can move on, and then I can learn, and I won't repeat them. And I remember...
You have to learn. I mean, if you don't, you're just foolishly wasting your time. And for me, I'm just sinking lower into the pit of suffering if I'm not learning what's on the other side of that pain.
Right.
If I'm just continuing to be a victim and staying in that, which I've chosen to do a couple of times.
Sure.
But if you're not, that's my deal.
You get out of it too.
You have
when you're in
to.
those cycles, you get out.
You got to learn something. If you're not learning something and moving on, you're just stagnant on a spiritual level and an emotional level, for sure.
For sure. And I'll tell you, I think it ties in really well with our World Whack-A-Mole, that when you're in that mind space and you're not reaching out, it's very quick to spiral. And I want to tell you how proud I am for you to be open about that. And I look forward.
Oh, thank you.
My life whack-a-mole this week was
Freedom boner.
Yeah. What? That happened?
I don't know. That was in my notes somewhere. I'm sorry. Was that the
quote unquote?
Sorry.
There's nothing like a freedom boner.
Okay.
Tina,
Well,
that is my wife. You just gave me my freaking whack-a-mole this week. Get it? Whack, whack, whack. Boner. Okay, go ahead. What? It's horrible. Cut that shit out.
Don't leave it, Sean. Leave it.
No.
Yes, it's live.
We said we're not doing
my personal mole is that I'm just still on my cleanse. I've lost a few pounds.
You're looking
I
good,
feel
sis.
fucking great. I
love you,
Whack-a-mole.
everyone. Join us live next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We love you. Follow us on all major platforms.
Yes.
Sean, take us home.
You've been listening to Whack-A-Mole with Tina B and Charmaine G. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Watch us on YouTube and subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Join us next time for, well, whatever may happen with Tina B and Charmaine G on Whack-A-Mole. This has been a production from A Podcast Studio.